I'm Jeff Cook.
And I'm TJ Wilson.
And this is Around the Circle.
I'm walking slowly. I'm taking my time. All I could talking is starting to rhyme. I'm letting go of lonely, letting go of strife. I just can't get enough of this beautiful life.
The Enneagram is a map of the human personality. It's a tool for navigating relationships. It creates language for what motivates us and helps us look at the way we look at everything else. Most importantly, the Enneagram's a mirror because sometimes you need help seeing yourself. My name's Jeff Cook. I'm a philosopher in Greeley, Colorado. With me is TJ Wilson, businessman, lover of theology, and Enneagram ninja. You go back to businessman today because I don't have my script.
That's fine with me. Hello. Which is, I was trying to think of something different to do because we're on location.
On location.
But I didn't really come up with anything. You're the one that stalled it.
We're at the local library.
Which has a recording studio.
It's pretty badass, actually.
Man, I wish libraries were this cool when I was a kid.
Right? We were with Jessica Pena, who is our Enneagram 5. Were you a lover of the library growing up?
Oh, yes.
What's one thing you can remember checking out when you were a youth?
The icky, sticky frog.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Why is that the thing that comes to mind?
It had a tongue that you could pull from the book, and it was very stretchy. So yeah, I distinctly remember playing with that.
Yeah.
Got a favorite library memory?
I checked out Stuart Little from my school library so often that they eventually just gave it to me. Like straight out of Beauty and the Beast. They're like, oh, you can just have that one. It was great.
It's excellent. Remember visiting my grandparents in Ardmore, Oklahoma, and being bored out of my mind, and they let me go to the library where they just had started collecting VHS cassettes. I was like, oh, yay, I get to rent movies. No, these were terrible. They were all terrible. The only one that I liked was Dracula from like the 1950s. That was so that's what I can remember checking out as a kid.
And all the rest of them were educational.
Yeah, I mean, it was something dumb.
Yeah.
So this is between these terrible library movies or whatever was, I had never been introduced to like daytime crap television on the 3 stations, so
yeah.
I'm watching soap operas and courtroom drama.
Soap operas. It's crazy that soap operas are still a thing.
They're
Very
a thing.
much.
Like, in a world of streaming, how are soap operas still a thing?
There's a lot of things that are just kind of holding on. I heard a guy who bought a phone book company for 2 times earnings. So all he had to do was make their normal earnings for 2 years, and then he got the entire company for free.
Awesome.
But that was kind of it. It was like, well, how long is the phone book going to be here for?
Yeah.
And kind of weighing that.
Did he make it the 2 years?
He did. He made it like 5 or 6.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
So we are doing our 10 questions with Jess. Jess, why do you feel like you can be on the Around the Circle podcast representing all 5s? I would like to know.
What gives you the right?
Well, I think in 5 style, I'm an expert, right? Like, I know. I have the knowledge.
That's what I wanted.
Perfect.
I wanted confidence.
Yeah.
Jess is a PhD student in psychology and one of the most informed people that we know, not only in our type, but in terms of expressing the inner life of 5s, which TJ and I have talked about extensively, is often very difficult to get 5s, and we'll talk about this, can commonly kind of, hold close to the chest their
Be a little
experiences.
Protective of their thoughts, their inner life, their things that are going on inside them.
Makes Enneagram work very difficult, but not today.
Not today.
Not today.
Jess has tools. Anything I'm missing from your bio in terms of the work that you're doing? What are the specific things that you're doing your research on?
Yeah, so specifically, I am in the field of school psychology, which means that I work with mostly K through 12 students. I have a preference for working with older adolescents. But yeah, I kind of dabble in a lot of different things. I really focus on school policy and school safety and security measures and how we make those things equitable for all students.
And how far away, like how many days are you away from being able to be called doctor?
How many days? Well, technically, once I defend my dissertation, I will be able to be called doctor, but I have another year left in my program.
Okay.
So I'll graduate in a year.
Okay.
You're going to defend prior to schoolwork being completed.
Most likely. My last year is an internship.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of practical work. I'll be working in a juvenile detention center. And yeah, so sometime during that year, I'll be defending my dissertation.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask TJ for the skinny on fives, and then we're going to pepper you with all sorts of questions. So, hey, TJ.
Sup?
What's a skinny on fives?
Skinny on fives. So fives being the head triad are observing the world and taking things in through that head place, wanting to understand, categorize the information, collect to get a broad picture of, like what is the big picture? Like give me more of the information so that I can have a full understanding, and from that place of solid preparation and understanding, then I can move forward and engage things with my life. Now, this means they're also sort of holding on to those thoughts, and that includes their thoughts about their emotions, their thoughts about their finances, the things that they're maybe legitimately afraid of. They're holding a lot of that in because that's the place of safety and protection. Fives are least attached to the outcome, like they want to follow the data, and they also are... A lot of fives describe that they have a really like a set amount of energy that once that energy is out, it's gone. I think that it's fair to say that for the most part, this is relational energy. This is the energy that I use putting into other people, to like actually interacting with other people, to asking questions, to like having those kinds of conversations. The energy for other people is really limited. And like once that bucket is empty, they got to they got to step back and refill it. Did I miss anything?
We're going to fill in all the gaps here
Great.
in the next 2 hours.
Perfect.
I mean, I was going to say, I was sitting here smiling to myself because as a youth, I would fill out all of these different like personality questionnaires and surveys and all of these things. And I never felt seen, but just here in those like 2 seconds that you were sharing that information, I felt so seen.
Yes.
As a youth, you were already a budding psychologist.
Yeah, I think so.
Do some inner exploration. Setting Enneagram aside for 2 seconds, when you think about what you want most, what are some of the things that come to your mind and heart first?
I would say my answer is definitely going to be painted through a lens of learning Enneagram. So I'll have to consider that as I answer. But really, it's always been about like security for me, like a sense of balance or just stability. That's like what I want. I really understand the idea of like not looking for an outcome. There's not like a specific outcome that I'm reaching for or going toward. I just want to feel comfortable. Maybe that's the best way to say it. I want to be comfortable.
It is going to overlap directly with our Enneagram answers in terms of what you want most. Our 5 language has been down that road: stability, security, predictability. There is kind of looking at the future, and yet from a withdrawn position. Talk about just the desire for knowledge and understanding, and how that overlaps with your sense of security.
I feel like if I have the answer, then I am prepared. When situation arises, my first inclination is to learn everything I can about that thing, because then I can fix the thing. I can solve the thing. In order to get through the thing, I need to know about the thing. So I find knowledge and acquiring understanding as a way to kind of avoid problems.
Since you went into psychology, are the problems that kind of emerge or the places of security that you see as needing security, have those been more personal? It's with people. I need to understand people in order to feel stable and secure.
Yeah, I think everything else in life is easy. It's people that are the difficult thing. And like life is nothing without people. Like I love and admire people and really value relationships. Even though it might not come across that way, like fives, what? You like relationships, you care about other people. Like I really genuinely do. And I think that saying that people are really hard. So I wanted to learn how do I navigate that?
I think there's like, it's often the case that fives have sort of like their field, the thing that they're really interested in. Like all of the five musicians that I've ever known, like that's the thing that they do. They don't really do a lot of other stuff. They're just really, really, really interested in music, and all different aspects of it. Like it touches everything there is to touch about what music is, right? But in my time with you, it seems like your thing is people. Like there's a part of you that is tapped into relationships and connections and emotions that different from other fives, in that a lot of other fives are sort of like aloof and like don't know how to interact with other people. But for you, the thing that you're into seems to be related to people. And so that makes sense to me through that sort of prism.
Yes, I would agree with that. And as I've learned about other fives and met other fives, I do think that might be a unique thing about me. But definitely, like I think that everything is accomplished through interactions with other people. So of course, that's something I'm going to prioritize knowing.
Yeah, love that.
Kind of a side question. You are trained to examine other people and kind of to understand, what makes this person tick. Do you yourself have difficulty having other people examine you?
That is very reflective. I don't think so. And I wouldn't be surprised if that does create tension for me.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like I actively participate in therapy because as a mental health professional, I feel like that is my due diligence. If I'm telling other people to participate, I should participate.
Smart.
And I don't feel the tension there.
Right.
But maybe if a person who does not have that skill set tried to analyze me, if you will, I'd feel some type of way about it.
Or even possibly if it happened without your consent. Like in therapy, you're stepping into that room on purpose. You don't go there without saying, yes, this is something I'm planning on doing. But if you were like sitting at a coffee shop and someone came up to you and was like, I'd like to analyze you. You'd be like, no, go away. I'm doing homework.
Yeah, that'd be weird.
Yeah.
That would be weird. And I will say that there are a few people, like people that we interact with, that I've had conversations with that will go, deeper. And I do value when someone sees me, if you will, when someone says something about me that I don't believe other people notice. Our friend Kathy has often said something, things to me where I'm like, wow, you really see me. And that does make me feel valued. And that could maybe be perceived as her analyzing me. So I don't know. I'm a little bit torn by that. Maybe it goes both ways. Either really angry or feeling really loved. Yeah.
It's a total side note. I consistently step into the same trap over and over again with fives who, when talking about Enneagram, can be quite skeptical. And so in order to prove, well, let me share with you about Enneagram. For example, let's take yourself. And then I'll start rattling off questions about them. And then all of a sudden the skepticism moves towards this like protection. Is like, you're trying to analyze me. I want to be analyzed. And so it's a double whammy. This is why the fives aren't getting into Enneagram, is because you got to kind of evangelist I am for Enneagram. That's been my experience.
Yeah, it's not so much they're turned off to the Enneagram at that point; it's that they're turned off to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's actually what I don't talk to those people ever again. Second question is, how do you see the world? As has been kind of said, you're taking in the world very analytically. Is that like? I assume you see yourself as a thoughtful person that leans into your head more than perhaps others do. Talk about how you take in the world.
Yes, I would agree with what you just said. And there is an element that, I mean, kind of leaning into what we were just discussing, I am very people-centered and really view everything in the world happening because of like human-to-human interaction. And so for that, I think I am really analytical and looking at kind of the systems that exist, the interactions that happen, but also recognizing that humans have, you know, so many emotions, and I'm probably looking at emotions from a very analytical lens, but I do spend a lot of time in understanding feeling, and like tapping into being like very empathetic.
Yeah. I think this, we're going to sort of circle around this idea a lot, but so I just want to name it right now so that it's the framework is there when we move, as we move forward, but there is a lot of what you're saying that, like, if I were listening to you talk and didn't know you, I'd be like, maybe that person's a 4, because there is so much awareness of your inner life, of your emotions. And we've talked about this. I know part of that comes from your family's openness with their emotions, and like that's just part of navigating growing up for you. And I also think, coming back to that idea of the like people focus, is that emotions are part of people and how people are connected. And so there's a sort of the understanding piece is that this is something that has to be understood in order to understand people. So you tap into the tools available to you at your 4 wing in a huge way, much more than a lot of other 5s do, and just draw on that understanding of emotion. Whereas a lot of 4s are not trying to understand the breadth of emotion in that way. They're you're trying to understand how it works. 4s want to be in the feelings, in the emotions. They want to understand it from inside of it. I would say that you want to understand it from outside of it.
Yes, very much so. I think at the beginning of my Enneagram journey, I questioned whether or not I belonged in the category of 4. I think after a very good and eye-opening conversation with Jeff, I realized that 4 was not where I was supposed to be. Quite honestly, I do not like feeling feelings. As much as I try to center them, that's active work that I'm doing. I don't like feeling feelings, and sometimes when I'm around others who are feeling feelings, I am uncomfortable. But that's something that I push past. I hate to like open up to the dark side here, but as a 5, I think there's a little bit of a manipulation behind my desire to like understand the human experience. I'm trying to understand it so that I'm safe. I'm trying to understand it so I'm secure. I'm not trying to understand it, or just like I'm not trying to be in it. I'm not at all. I'm trying to understand it. Yeah.
And as we often say, once you name it, you can control it, right? Yeah.
Love the idea of the distinction between feeling feelings and understanding feelings, and that one is like your lifelong pursuit and the other one is something you're avoiding.
Yes.
Well worth naming. The thing that has stood out to me is that you said this earlier on, that you're going to be going into correctional facilities, which I think for a lot of us ends up being kind of a scarier environment. I saw the Silence of the Lambs. You saw Silence of the Lambs.
I did.
It was terrifying.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm sure this is what all correctional facilities look like. That's the extent of my knowledge of the prison system.
I think they've been updated.
That and the Green Mile.
Right. I did see that as well.
Yeah.
Also quite terrifying. But you are seeking stability and security, and yet those environments apparently are not only, I assume, not a scary space, but they're ones that you would desire to enter. Isn't that right? And it's because the security and stability, the places I assume that you're feeling anxious. Well, wait, let me ask the question. What are the things that cause you anxiety? Because I would feel anxious in a prison system, but I imagine that's not one of the things that's causing that.
Yeah. Yes, that is true, and that is something that I reflect on often. Sometimes with Enneagram language, I struggle with the word safety. I move a lot. I've lived in a lot of different places, and every time I move, I have this it's a very uncomfortable conversation where someone tries to tell me that this part of town is scary and bad and you should avoid it. And those conversations always leave me feeling icky, because I don't agree. I usually don't agree with whatever that person is saying. They have some preconceived judgment of a location that I don't agree with. So I struggle with the word safety. I would say that I probably put myself in places that others might not consider safe. I think for me, it's all about security, and security comes from a little bit from within. Like, I have to know that there are things around me that keep me safe and secure. To me, that's like financial stability. To me, that's like the relationships that I have with the people that are close to me, my family, my partner, things like that. It's not necessarily like my physical location. It's more so the systems that exist around me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Because like, if you're looking for bodily safety, prison is probably the wrong place to go. If security is about understanding, is about being able to navigate the world in a way that makes you feel like you know what you're doing, then you could go into all kinds of quote unquote scary places and be totally fine. It's the unknown that is more fearful than bodily unsafety.
Yes, and I would say, to build on that, the unknown is really scary to me. I prep for the unknown so that there isn't unknown, right? Like, that's my goal. And I think that I have a confidence in my ability. Like, I've been working in alternative educational settings since I entered education. And I've built a skill set to know what I'm doing.
Right.
So I don't feel like those are scary places. I've never really questioned my safety in those places.
Right.
I mean, sure, the dialogue, well, that's a whole other subject. I won't get into that, but I don't feel unsafe because I know what I'm doing. And I think that part of my goal in my work is to make those spaces more like rehabilitation spaces rather than punitive spaces.
Yeah.
So to me, those are some of the things that make it unsafe.
Love the distinction here between safety feels like a result, like I'm safe, whereas as I'm hearing you, security is more about having a confidence in a series of assets, of that you have this knowledge, you have these relationships, and there's for lack of a better term, there's like a trust there in, you know what to trust in, you're aware of what is trustworthy and not trustworthy is what I was hearing there, and that's what security ends up being.
Yes, I think of it like within the teaching world, there is this term scaffolding, and that's how, I think of scaffolding on the side of a building. That's how you build up a lesson for a student who might not be like at the level that they can, where they can then meet that lesson. So you add scaffolding to help them get there. I feel like that's kind of how I envision myself, right? Like I always want to make sure that I have that scaffolding around to ensure stability, security, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Five's taking the world through the future produces, in our language, a underlying feeling of fear that's in my head is none of us know what's coming in the future. And if you are kind of oriented toward the future and what might happen, fear can be that kind of underlying anxiety. Do you experience fear in that way? And like, what's your relationship with that?
Yes. I don't know if I would classify it as fear, but I do experience anxiousness about what is coming and what is upcoming. I think that I feel like being in school, doing a program like I'm doing, it gave me 5 years of knowing what's ahead of me. And that gave me a sense of security. I knew what was going to be happening for 5 years of my life, and I think that I actively choose things like that where I have this like time commitment in front of me and I know what I have to do and I get through that thing. I'm thinking of like K through 12, right? Like there was something in front of me that I knew I had to get to the end of it. Then I did undergrad. I did AmeriCorps programs that were like a year and then 2-year commitments. I always did something that had a time limit that gave me this like sense of stability. Like I have to get through this thing. So I think that has helped me in it gives me a plan ahead of me. If I don't have that plan, then I create that plan. And I think that this is the way that I've done it. By doing different programs, by putting things in front of me that have like a time limit or a timeline, that has helped me ease that anxiousness. Yeah.
Well, and even thinking about you're about to move to a new city that you've been to but not spent any real time in before, and you're moving there for at least a year because that's how long your internship is.
Yes.
But the whole thing is part of the planned 5 years. The internship is part of the whole program, and if you happen to stay there, that's a different conversation, but like the fear of moving to a new city is different in this scenario because you know what you're doing there. Yeah, you have to find a house and figure out a community and all of the things, but like the difference between just deciding to move to a new town and like figure out your life from there, which I know a ton of people who have done that. It's like, I want to go to New York, I want to go to Seattle, I want to go wherever, and like they just move there and like figure out life there. That is not part of how fives want to operate because that is a fearful space. The entire unknown of just going somewhere without a plan. But in this move, all of the other things that are unknown about moving kind of take a back seat because you know why you're going there.
Yeah, there is a structure and there is a path. And I think that that's what I'm always looking for. As much as I'd love to say that I'm a trailblazer, I am not. I like to have a clear path ahead of me, and I definitely follow that path. Yes, there are going to be a lot of uncertainties, and I think that my experiences in life have allowed me to like deal with those things that come up, but as long as I have that like structure, that path, I'm good to go.
And we've talked about this a lot with fives, with several types, but like the idea of outsourcing some of the things that you don't necessarily do well. Like you get the happy privilege of being able to outsource a lot of the figure out that stuff to your partner because he's great with that, like rolling with the punches and figuring out, yeah, we'll figure it out. And you get to go and do the work that you're there for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gabe.
Thing that I heard there was that constant movement is, in my mind, associated actually with your stress move. And so 7s are the ones that actually would love to bounce around quite a bit. And I assume that there might be an uncomfortableness there if I'm bouncing around too much that's kind of associated with some of the tools you might use in stress. Like, you can bounce around, but I would be curious if that makes you feel uncomfortable in that space.
You know, it's funny because I don't think, and maybe because it is a stressful thing inherently, like moving is stressful, but Gabe and I often joke with one another. My partner and I joke with one another that once we recognize people at the grocery store, it's time to move. So I don't know, there is a part of me that I enjoy that. I do enjoy being new to a place. I enjoy exploring. I was new here not long ago, and you know, I loved just getting to know a new space, a new community. And I'm looking forward to that, you know, hopefully multiple times in my future.
But moving is not decided by that desire to go to a new place, to get something new. Like it's a great joke. Once we know the people of the grocery store, it's time to move. But like, the reason that you have moved is not because you knew people at the grocery store. It's because you had somewhere to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, always. In all of my moves, I would say that that's true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I go to the grocery store to be away from people, but I'm next to people. So that makes a lot of sense. If I know the people at the grocery store, then you are going to take something from me. I have to actually remember your name, remind myself of your spouse or your partner's name, and ask how they're doing. And that's not why I came to the grocery store.
Right. I think that that's tapping into my 5-ness also in a different way. When I go to the grocery store, I'm there to get groceries. I am not there to talk to you. So if you see me around and I seem standoffish, it's probably because I am a little bit.
Yeah, I'm the exact opposite. I love running into people at the grocery store.
The social time for you?
I love it.
I don't know where my battery is at that moment. You know, so sometimes I would love to chit chat, and sometimes I'm run out.
Yeah. Well, and you've planned this much battery for the grocery store. Yeah.
So you're helping me with something that I'm dialoguing about with my youngest son, who, my wife's a university professor. He could get a free education for 4 years. He could also knock out his, his coursework, his gen ed stuff for free and then go somewhere else. Will not do it. And the idea of stability and long-term commitments really elevates in that space, because what he sees as an asset isn't the money presently. What he sees as an asset is the relationships that he's going to build his freshman year, because he has in his mind that this is how college works. You leave high school, you go to college, you make all these new friends, and these will be your lifelong friends. And that's a belief that he has. And I'm going to be there for 4 years with these people, and this is going to be my new family. I don't know if you have reflections on that, but that's what I heard, and was really helpful for me.
For sure. One, I connect on that. I connect with that on a strong level. I grew up in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has a lot of great state schools, and I refused to go to any of them. My parents begged me. We toured different schools, and I refused. So I went to a school in North Carolina, far enough away that I could do all the things that you just mentioned. So I relate to that, like in that specific situation. And I think in addition to my work with youth, I am very much driven by policy. Tough time to talk about this, but I've always considered myself part of, like, a citizen of the United States, and have really focused in on federal policies and the importance that the importance of those things like for our national school systems. And I think that moving a lot of places helps me build that knowledge and awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I've lived in rural communities. I've lived in suburban communities. I've lived in urban communities. I've lived in almost 10 states, or I'm going to have been, once I move, I think it'll be 10 states that I've lived in. So I'm building knowledge there by like seeing all of these different pockets of our country, because it informs how I view like federal policy. Again, sticky subject at the current moment, and that is like a passion of mine, like informing federal policies.
And I think that also speaks to this part of wanting to experience something else. Like it would be very easy for anyone else to look at the situation and say, don't you want stability in this place that you know, and like you can do this for free, and blah, all the things that you and your wife are looking to try and convince your youngest about. But for a 5, he already knows everything about this town. There's like,
of course,
he already knows a lot about the university that his mom works at, that he lives 4 blocks away from. Like that, there is significantly less opportunity for more information and understanding, and for the sort of like surprising opportunities that come from newness. And I fully understand why he might want to like go across the country, because that's an entirely new space with all new things to learn.
And think about the time that he's had to prepare for it. You know, like with this, I knew that after my 4th year, I would be moving to another state. That's a lot of time to prepare for it. Just like, you know, he has had so much time to prepare for this move. Like, he's thought about it way more times than you can imagine.
and way more than he ever let on.
Oh, of
well.
course, of course.
Because that thinking is internal.
Brought up stress moves. That feels like a security move there, that you've, in a very healthy way, that you have done the research, you have the knowledge, and now you are prepared to actually get into your body and act. That strikes me as very healthy. Yeah. Also, Beckett Cook, there's no great skiing on the East Coast, just so you know. Boston, no great skiing.
Vermont?
Did I stutter? No great skiing.
As a proud East Coaster, do what you want.
How many states besides Colorado have you lived in, Jeff?
Lived in?
Yeah.
How long do I need to have been there?
Like, you lived there.
So if I like spent summers with my dad or my grandparents somewhere
count.
for months at a time,
That doesn't count.
just one. No, 2
Colorado.
in Washington. I was born in Washington.
That doesn't count.
I lived there, and I was a person at the time.
But you weren't a skiing person at the time. You weren't observing how the skiing was in Washington.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen videos. I watch videos on Vermont skiing. If it's raining while you're skiing, that's not good skiing.
To be fair, I did not grow up skiing, snowboarding, anything.
Yeah, I can't actually speak to this at all.
I'm also not trying to pick on East Coast skiing.
Colorado's some of the best skiing in the world, and I've literally never been.
Yeah, no. I grew up next to literally the best mountain in the world, and so I'm a huge snob on this. It already talking about skiing makes you a snob. I grew up 20 minutes from Aspen. That makes you an uber snob. Mm-hmm. The observant 5 will confirm, I'm sure.
I just noticed you're very passionate about this topic.
I just want my kid to stay around.
I understand.
Well, speaking about things that we want and getting them, let's talk about your stance. You're in the withdrawn stance. In our language, we step back. We step back for what we want and step back for stability and security. Does that resonate with you? On a lot of your language so far, you seem actually quite active. Does stepping back make sense to you as the way by which you get what you want in the world?
Can you say that again?
There seems to be primary for 5s, I think you've said it well, is that security desired. And yet you seem like a fairly active, ambitious, you're pursuing a PhD, moving to all these new states. That doesn't seem like a very withdrawn way of being in the world. But I bet you resonate with the language of I take a step back in order to get stability.
Yes. I think that one is hard to put words to. I will say that I very often remind myself, and I cannot, I should know who said this. Is it Isaac Newton? A body in motion stays in motion.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
It is.
I think that I need to tattoo that on my body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You
it in my
and
bones.
TJ can go together.
It's yeah.
Because if I am moving, I will stay moving.
Mm-hmm.
And Gabe knows when we eat dinner, we immediately do the dishes, because if I go sit on the couch, I will not get up again.
Mm-hmm.
I will get up to go roll into bed. Yeah, so I think that applies to me to the 10th degree. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we've touched on aspects of it a lot. Like I mentioned this in a few minutes ago, but like the thinking for you is internal. Like it's withdrawn in a way that's like you're not necessarily sharing your thinking with other people. Like that withdrawn space is like the mind palace that you go into to process and organize all of your thoughts. And when you come out of that mind palace and re-engage, that's from that place of security that you've already developed. And so not like even the idea of moving, of pursuing the degrees, like the decision making that goes into a lot of that, the understanding that has to come out of all of that in order to do something with it, that stuff is naturally internal. It's naturally withdrawn in a way that's not necessarily a literal step back, but it is withdrawn from the wider world.
Yes, and I will say, like, to add to that, and I feel like this is a conversation that maybe we have had at some point. Most, if not all of my thinking, right, because I'm in academic spaces right now, I'm in classes, and so there's a lot of outward thinking and conversation, but I would say most of my thinking and reflection time is internal. My partner gets a glimpse of it, but for the most part, it's in spaces where I feel safe and secure, like at home, in my brain. And then when someone questions me on something that I've already thought about, that enrages me because I have done all of this thinking.
Yeah.
I've spent so much time thinking about it. You didn't see it because I didn't need you to see it. And then you have the audacity to question me. Yeah.
This was a thing that about showing your work in math class it infuriated me that you had to show your work. Because if I've done the work to get to the answer, that should be enough. But now I have to do the work again to show you that I've done the work. Ridiculous.
I was a math teacher, so I like the showing
Yeah, of
work.
course.
Sorry.
Yeah, I get it. I understand it. It just makes me mad.
I similar though. I have I guess I'll just say it. I have a professor that I work with that really likes to meet on Zoom and write together. Like shared document writing together.
Sounds awful.
Yes, it is. It is very stressful for me. It is very stressful for me because I'll work on the same sentence like at least 7 times, and I don't want him to see that.
Right. Because
I don't like
it's
it.
not ready yet.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to see it yet. Like, I love the editing process and I respect the editing process, but I need to get to a place where I'm comfortable for you to see to edit it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I struggle with that.
I like that.
Yeah, there's something to be said there about fives not wanting to be judged, not necessarily on their action, their dress, their emotional life, but when it comes to whether or not you're smart, this will be a place of sensitivity.
This takes me back to childhood. I was often assumed to be unintelligent, not smart. I don't know why that was a thing, but I remember oh, wow, you're in honors class? Oh, you got an A on that test? That was like a something that I heard often when I was younger. In college, my roommate helped me discover that it was my voice. She said, I think it's just your voice. You have kind of a stupid voice. And so I've landed on when people hear me talk, they assume something about me. And I'm okay with it now. But yeah, I do have a sensitivity to people questioning my intelligence.
Thing about action, you can see people's actions and judge it. Emotions, you can even kind of see. You can see how people's emotions are coming out in their interactions and how that flavors their relationships. You can't see thought. And 5s are not only thinkers, they're solitary thinkers. I'm going to do as you kind of said, I've done the work already. And that was probably by yourself. And 80-90% of your thought has not been unveiled to the world yet until it is. Isn't that how that goes?
Yes. And I don't want to paint a picture that I am not wanting criticism or critique or
Sure.
Because I love all of those things because it advances the understanding. And I'm not in it just for me to be the smartest in the room. I think we should all be smarter. So I like growth in that. I like I said, I like the editing process. I love all of those things. And one, I need to get myself to a place where I'm ready to share it with you. And two, don't question me on how much I was thinking about it.
Yeah.
Or how much effort I put into my thought.
Yeah, I think there's I have no idea what you sounded like when you were in your undergrad, but I would have never guessed your voice does not communicate to me that you're unintelligent. But I can fully see how a sort of aura of unintelligence might be placed onto a reserved female.
Yes.
Who is never the first person to raise their hand. Who needs time to process. This happened to me as well. You need time to process before being able to give the answer. Now, when you do speak, your answer is probably right, but in a traditional school system, there isn't a lot of space for us to just wait around for the 4s, 5s, and 9s to get there, right? So, if you were called on a lot and didn't know what to say right away, it might make it seem like you were unintelligent, but that's really just because you needed to get your mind around it for a minute.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think that maybe uncharacteristic of 5s, my presence is probably more bubbly than maybe is attributed to 5s.
Sure.
And so I think that has something to do with it. I'm quite the giggly person. I like humor.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that contributes to it also. But
Sure.
I think calling out that I'm a female is definitely part of the equation.
Yeah. You're a giggly female, therefore
Right.
you're definitely a bimbo, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Can't be smart.
Yeah. Which is nonsense.
Nonsense.
Ridiculous nonsense.
I'm going to circle back to something that's off topic, but it's just always important to me on these fronts that I feel like my type is aware of things in my youthful past because I want to be good at what I do and find a lot of value in that. When people judge that when I was in elementary school, that's the thing that really pops for me. Whereas I don't think that would be true for a lot of folks. So I assume it's the case that you don't care if somebody said, Jess, you can't really throw a football very well.
Oh, I can.
But maybe that was never an issue for you. But it may not be on top of mind. I remember when Charlie Hutton in 3rd grade said I couldn't throw a football, or but if Charlie Hutton said your voice is kind of high pitched, you're probably not very smart, that sticks with you because that's where your motive is, right?
Yeah, I would say that's true. I think that I am very aware of the skill set or the knowledge that I do not have. And I take no offense when someone brings that to light, right? Like as we were starting this, I was asking questions about the mic and the system, and I have no idea what I'm doing. Please tell me when I'm wrong. So I'm okay with not knowing something, but there are categories that I am like sensitive to. Yeah. And I can throw a spiral. I just have small hands.
I believe it.
I can throw a spiral, but only on accident.
Another side note, my wife came home from a spin class on Sunday saying that Pena just works the hell out of people.
Yes, I would say athleticism and like, working out is one of my things that like I know a thing or two there.
Knowing about your body. I want to pivot into orientation to time fives, as has been mentioned, taking in the world with that future filter of what might happen. But the tools employed are going to be past-oriented tools. And we've kind of spoken around this, but knowledge itself is a past-oriented tool. I know these things, and I've kind of stockpiled them, and they're in that inventory of my brain that I can always bring them forward to meet the anxieties I have. That's how I picture kind of the flow going for fives. Is that something you relate to? And could you like build on that?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that we talked about the future first, because I really think of myself as like very past oriented because of how much I draw from my past and like how much I draw from my past that brings me to where I am now. Yeah, I think just like you described it, I'm very much building my knowledge from things that have happened in my past. It's not necessarily all my knowledge is coming from like books or whatever. It's like collected experiences. And I can only achieve those from something being in my past. And then that is what paints how I approach the future, like the decisions that I'm going to make, the path that I'm going to forge, or as we talked about earlier, maybe follow. Yeah, so I think it goes very much past to future. And I will reflect on that I have a difficult time being present. It is hard for me to like sit in the moment, and not in just like a mindfulness sense, but like recognizing what is going on for me here and now. Yeah, I have a hard time connecting there.
I love that you bring up having a difficulty being present as opposed to like this is where your wheelhouse is. I have an eye toward the future. I have an eye toward the past, but being here. So my wife, who's a 3, has the opposite orientation to time in that she takes in the world through the past, but engages it with future tools. And she also has a difficult time being in the present until she's secure. And I don't know if that would be similar for you, that when you're actually getting into your body and acting, is that a place where you can feel present?
I would like to say yes.
Like in exercise. We've talked about exercise.
Yes.
Do you feel present when you're exercising?
I do. That's a really fun time for me. Mm-hmm. I'm just picking up heavy things and putting them down and listening to some bops. And I love it. Mm-hmm. I'm there.
Well, and I would even say that that's, whether it's intentional or not, that is a very present, focused space. And I would draw attention to the fact that like you're not working out for you is for the sake of working out. It's not to achieve any kind of goals. Like there's a lot of people who are working out who is like, I'm looking to bench this much, or I'm looking to lose this much weight, or like all of these other reasons why people might work out. Working out for you is about getting into your body and feeling your body do things. And they're again, whether it's conscious or an unconscious decision, but that is for you. That is about being in the moment in your body right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. And I always describe it as my daily dose of mental health. Mm-hmm. So it's the time where I don't have to think about anything else. Mm-hmm. I'm just doing the thing that's in front of me. Yeah. I'm able to kind of go go blank and do those things.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I like being able to outlift men around me.
That's what I've heard twice there, and it's again that pushing into security. And if that's where you're meeting the present moment, that's what I'm hearing. There's like strength, being able to pick up heavy things and put them down, and being able to outlift. Both those strike me as having kind of that tinge of eightness that's kind of coming into that space. I want to feel strong.
And I think that when I am able to activate my body in that way, I get to that 8 approach a lot easier. Yeah.
Was he correct in terms of saying you're not goal oriented when it comes to?
Yeah. I'm not really.
Bang.
I've gone through seasons where I have a goal, but overall I would say I really just do weightlifting because like it makes me feel good. Like I like it.
I'm glad you drew that out because I should have been more explicit. Like I already knew that about you. And
yeah.
I think that is an important thing to know, to consider when we consider 5s and working out. Is like, are there goals with 5s? Maybe not.
It's probably true of 4s, 5s, and 9s. The goals are just not a big part of the inventory. Yeah.
And like, we all know that I don't work out. Like that's not a thing that I care about. But also I'm almost 40 and I have a chronic pain disease, so I have to start taking better care of my body. And like I'm trying to be a little bit more regular about stationary bike riding, which I have this crappy little bike at my house and I just ride it while I'm watching TV. And it is a regular occurrence that I will sit down for a set amount of time and then all of a sudden I'm 5 or 10 minutes past that amount of time because I'm not paying attention. Like, the goals don't matter to me, so much so that I will easily surpass them without recognizing it.
I think that the only time that a goal comes to mind, and this I think taps into the idea of like time. The only time that a goal pops into my mind is in that moment where, again, maybe I'm lifting with my partner or someone else and I'm like, oh, I'm going to do more than that. Or, you know, it's like an in the moment sort of thing. I'm not really, at least with weightlifting, I'm not reaching toward anything.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is that the same for the PhD? Is a PhD a goal? Or is that in a similar vein? No, this is just me showing that I'm really mentally strong.
I don't know if it's either.
Huh?
I think that is an exercise in me acquiring knowledge. Like,
Okay.
I am excited to graduate and I am looking forward to wearing that silly little hat. And I don't think that I did it to prove anything to anyone, nor did I do it to make people call me doctor. Like, there wasn't anything that like I'll get at the end of it that, I don't know, is like fulfilling something for me. I'm really just like on a journey of learning, and this was a way to do that learning.
Not for the sake of a career.
I don't think so.
Right?
Yeah, I don't.
Because you
think
could
so.
have had a career without it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it probably would have been a cheaper way to go about it,
Sure.
not getting a PhD.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a good opportunity to explore the idea that in the future, your PhD will serve to do a ton of the work that you've had to do yourself. And by that, I mean, when people question whether or not you're right about something, you can say, here's my PhD. I know what I'm talking about. And you don't have to do all of the work of saying, well, I know this because of this, and I know this because of this. It's like, no, I'm a doctor in this. I know what I'm talking about. There is that it will serve as a sort of shortcut to do a lot of that background work. But it's not necessarily the reason you would get a PhD is to make that shortcut.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think having the credential is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And even in my time in academia, when I complete a certain training or work in a certain field for X number of years, I have learned that does exactly what you're saying. It creates a shortcut for you.
Yeah.
And so that'll be nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I might enjoy that aspect of it. yeah, it's really about like acquiring the knowledge.
Yeah. It's not about the status. It's about the knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not that this will be your posture, and I feel like I complain about this too often, but it's my primary experience I have of fives in my career field is that the credential ends up being an asset by which they establish financial security. And the paper may have been done 30 years ago, but it's still the case. I have a doctorate. I have standing to hold this career and job, even though I'm no longer a good teacher. I haven't been informed on present literature. You know, the PhD is an asset that gets me the security I desire.
That's really disappointing as a 5 to hear, because my goal, if we're labeling goals, is to constantly be learning. And so in my eyes, that 5 is failing.
Right. Yeah.
Because if they're not learning, they're stagnant. And what is that? Maybe that's them falling into like a safety net. I don't view that as helpful or beneficial.
Of all things, a lot of them got bored with academics and pushed into university politics and said, this is more intriguing, exciting for me. And I can get into my body. I can exercise my strengths. I mean, you can kind of see how that might play.
I can see that. Like, I never envisioned myself as an academic. I never envisioned myself as getting into academia. Fortunately, my field is very practical.
Right.
So I will get to practice after I graduate. So I understand their thought process there, and I'm hopeful that I'll just keep pushing and try to keep learning rather than sit back.
Well, and this may be a little bit too specific for publishing, but I would bet money that there's an awful lot of philosophy professors in the world who are philosophy professors because they couldn't do anything else with their degree. You know, like it's not because they wanted to teach philosophy; it's because they wanted to do philosophy, and the only way you can make money is by teaching.
Right.
Yeah.
That's probably fair. Psychology is different in that regard.
Yep.
Philosophy bakes no bread.
It's true. Who said that?
I have no idea, but it's kind of well known. It's a random thing though. Like apparently, an undergrad in philosophy puts you in the in the realm 10 years into your career, the same salary on average as engineers. It's like people get degrees in philosophy and then they go elsewhere. And they're like, okay, what the hell am I going to do? They often, as was said, if you stay with philosophy, it's very difficult. So they are often pivoting into different spheres.
Yeah. Interesting.
I started making money when I stepped away from philosophy. This is, for example, into Enneagram, which is where the real cash is, kids.
Perfect.
Let me tell you how to make a lot of money. Podcasts.
By recording for free in the library. That's how we do it.
Well, friends, we have already recorded the second half of this conversation. You can find it in its entirety on aroundthecircle.org. Hey, TJ, guess what?
What?
We have a publication date for a book that's coming out.
We do.
On June 28th, our book is going to release. We're going to have an event in Greeley, Colorado. You can find details to that also at aroundthecircle.org. And, hey, Jess, you want free tickets to that?
I would love free tickets.
If you
so
were,
long as you're still going to be here. Are you leaving before that?
I'll have to check the
June
calendar.
28th.
I'll have to check.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look at my calendar.
We'll give you free tickets, but we're not paying travel expenses.
well, if you're a guest on the Around the Circle podcast, you can get free tickets as well. All the rest of you should go now because we have an early bird special. It's going to be a $120 ticket because TJ needs more money. But
Papa needs a new pair of shoes.
right now they're $60 if you get them before the middle of April. And I think that's what I got.
Do we need any stars or likes or anything?
We always need stars. We haven't gotten stars or likes or comments on our podcast for at least 6 months. So if you would like free tickets, we might consider giving you some if you give us some stars and what do you call it? A comment?
I don't know.
a review.
I don't engage to that world. Yeah, stars and reviews. We've gotten lots of comments on the Spotify and the YouTube channel,
That's true.
but no stars or reviews.
You can find us on Instagram, you can find us on YouTube, and you can find us at aroundthecircle.org. And we have 2 other podcasts. If you're just getting into Enneagram, you can find the Start Here podcast for you or friends, preferably friends. If you've gotten this far, you're insane. This is going off the rails. This is what happens when I don't have notes. I have my sheet in my office. It's like, okay, what do I say at the end of this silly thing? And then I edit this down because this is all buffoonery is what it really is.
Not all buffoonery.
It's almost
some
all
buffoonery.
Just been a delight having you. Cheering for you and your work and government funding and all the rest.
And hey, if something happens and you have to stay here and not move, I'm also kind of cheering for that.
Oh, that's true.
You know,
So,
I can't say I'd be too upset.
The
It's
well
been-
runs
it's been
dry.
fun.
Maybe this is a reason to cheer for chainsaws as our friends stick around.
because the negative impact it has on our friends' futures.
I mean, it's all self. It's looking out for yourself. Anyway, that's what I got. You got anything else there, TJ?
I got nothing, man.
She's Jess Pena. We're cheering for her in her future. He's TJ Wilson. He's officially awesome. And I'm Jeff Cook. And who you aren't just is not interesting.